Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome in. So much for joining us today. We are joined by our amazing partner, Insightly, and are here to talk about how you can 3x your ROI with your CRM. We are thrilled to have all of you joining us today, including the CMO from Insightly, Chip House. Thank you so much, Chip, for hosting this with us. We're really excited to get started. Chip, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Gina, thanks so much. And thanks to all of you for attending today. As you heard from Gina, we're going to talk about how to 3x your ROI from your CRM. And I'm excited about it because we have a couple of phenomenal guests with me today on the panel. So first is Vanessa Hunt. With over 20 years of experience in training, marketing, and CRM implementation, Vanessa is dedicated to sourcing and implementing the best marketing automation, CRM, CPQ, and ERP solutions for her clients. Vanessa is a keen linguist, which I think is super interesting, fluent in English, French, German, and proficient in Italian. Grazie. She's worked on many CRM projects, delivering training across Europe in multiple languages. And Vanessa loves hiking and bike packing anywhere there are mountains or lakes. And also excited to have Andy Codner, who's the VP of Global RevOps for Bazaar Voice. So Andy is currently Vice President of Revenue Operations at Bazaar Voice. Andy brings a foundation as a quota-carrying seller, so he's the real deal. He's done this before. He's spent 2 decades across the funnel in operational roles supporting the business at scale. And from systems, analytics, and forecasting to process, enablement, and communications, Andy has worked to drive business in global technology organizations and smaller emerging companies alike, from Oracle, Siebel, and AWS to RingCentral and Hyperion. So as you can hear from those intros, I've got a pretty exciting crew with me today that know more about CRM, I think, that most of us have forgotten. And myself, again, as Gina mentioned, I'm the CMO at Insightly CRM. I've been in SaaS for the past 25 years, much of it in marketing technology and sales technology. And so I'm going to get us going here and kind of kick this all off. So if you're here, CRM is important to you. And your CRM, in fact, may be one of your biggest investments that your company makes, since it's software that you renew every year, whether you're in the cloud, hopefully you are anyway in the cloud, or on a legacy CRM, you're likely spending hundreds to thousands per month. Every CRM should be the single source of truth for your business. If it's not that, you'll never get ROI from it. So that's almost like a starting point for all of us. When it is the single source of truth, your team has the tool set to increase revenue, decrease operational costs, create internal collaboration, and deliver a better customer experience. So this is our second webinar with RevGenius. We did one a few months ago talking about how your CRM can help your sales leader stay sane. And if you haven't seen that one, we're going to go ahead and add that link in chat so you can review that later on. So, well, let's get underway. Vanessa, do you want to say hi? And I'm going to pass it to Andy to say hi too. And then I'm going to start asking some questions.
Sure. Yeah, really nice to meet everybody. Thanks very much for joining us this evening, this afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Vanessa. I've been working in CRM for about 20 years and still see some of the challenges that we had many moons ago, but really delighted that we've seen so much technology improvement in recent years and that CRM is much more accessible to many sorts of companies now. Based in the south of the UK, but love Europe, love traveling, obviously to the US as well. And I live at home with my husband and my little cat.
Awesome. Will your cat make an appearance today?
Well, I was thinking she might do, but I have locked her out at the moment. So hopefully not, but she's adorable. So.
Got it. And hi, Andy. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me as well. Great to be here. I'm joining today from San Francisco. The weather is nice. This is the nicer time of year for us. Also been in software in general for a little over 20 years. I was a salesperson in software prior to that. So I got my start in CRM as a user, which has given me a really nice foundation. I always think about, hey, what's this going to feel like? Is someone actually going to do this and use it? Largely in the RevOps world now for quite a while, full funnel. So it was sales operations, but I was actually working in marketing operations without directly realizing it. And I've really enjoyed the scope. So seen a lot of things. And I think that these basics keep coming back because they are those basics. And I think just because something is a basic doesn't mean it's any less valuable. That foundation has to be really strong to get your money's worth, and more importantly, get your time's worth. So figuring out where to spend time is a blast for me. It's part of what I do when I get up every day, is figuring out how to optimize things and make them smoother and faster, and love brainstorming on new ideas about that.
Cool. Well, thanks, Andy. Well, audience, you can tell we have the right people for the job here. And so let's start digging in here. And, if you're setting up technology to optimize your ROI, the first thing you need to do is you have to onboard it correctly inside of your organization. And this is really interesting because there's been studies coming out for the past 20 odd years about CRM implementation and the percentage of those implementations that actually fail in organizations. And that rate is somewhat disputed, and there's a lot of different studies about this. But, they range from 18 to 69%, depending on which source that you're looking at. And so, I think there's an element of this that's obvious. But Vanessa, talk to us about why onboarding is so critical and how do organizations get it right?
Yeah, I mean, it's frightening to hear those statistics, isn't it? And hopefully the lower one is the more accurate one. But yeah, I think one of the key things is obviously involving people, first of all, in the decision about which CRM is going to be selected, and making sure that you've gone through your due diligence to select a solution that's going to not only suit you today, but also, support you going forward. And having a really clear goal about why you're changing technology. You're not doing it just for the fun of it. There is a huge amount of change for users, for employees in an organization when technology changes. So you have to have some really clear objectives about what you're trying to achieve. And I think also that there's, a lot of people just assume that, it's a web app, it's really easy to use. It's just like using a website, but actually the critical thing for users is having clear processes. And sometimes it's not until you put a CRM in that you realize, well, actually our processes are not quite as robust as we thought, or we've missed out a huge chunk of processes. There's all this stuff that happens behind the scenes that the salespeople perhaps aren't aware of, and we haven't considered how the CRM impacts those users. So I think, knowing exactly what your plan is for implementing the CRM, from the very start of the project and not last minute, is critical. And certainly as a consultant, making sure that you leave an organization with people in place that can support it going forward. It is a project, there is an end date, and you have to have the right team internally to support the CRM that you've implemented. And some CRMs will require more technical skills than others. And therefore you need to think about that in terms of your project and your planning. But I think it's a very customized approach, and it's very specific to each company, each sector, and also the culture within an organization. So yeah, knowing your people first, and then working out the best way to help them learn that new technology comes second.
I think you pointed out a couple of things there. I mean, the first is the plan, and the second is the people, right? Yeah. Because you have to have an idea why you're doing this in the first place, what your goals are, what your outcomes are that you're trying to achieve, and put together the plan. And it's going to include things like, I would assume, enablement and training and internal communication, which is probably half the battle, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think, even warning people of what's coming down the line, and so it's not something that they find out one week and they're being trained the next. I think, to your point, change management and communicating what's going well, what's maybe not going so well even, but people will make assumptions when you don't communicate clearly. So yeah, that comm strategy is also integral to the training part as well.
One of the things you had said when we were talking about this before, Vanessa, was, does your onboarding meet the vision of what you had proposed?
Mm-hmm.
And so what did you mean by that?
Yeah, I suppose it's like years ago when I first started in CRM, I was an end user trainer, and often, a huge benefits would be sold from the outset. We're going to be doing all of these things, within the first 6 months. And sadly, at that point, CRM took a lot longer to roll out. You'd be waiting for 3 months until you got the new drop of functionality, for example. And so it just wasn't realistic to give people the benefits they needed from the outset. And so all the talk about, what they would be able to do, it was going to come, but not at the speed and the pace that we'd anticipated. And so basically It was generally a big disappointment, and you as a trainer, and Andrew will say the same, you're in the front line, trying to explain to people why these things aren't there, and, and finding all of the bugs, in the first tests. And so thankfully, things happen a lot faster, development's a lot more agile now. And so those surprises don't happen so much. And I think we also are able to truly provide some benefits, early on. You don't have to wait 9 months, 12 months. And I think people are also seeing the importance of data and cleaning data, before it gets into the CRM. And there are many more tools to help us do that. Whereas, back in the day, it was a nightmare. Data migration was always a big surprise on some of those larger projects.
Yeah, makes good sense. So, I mean, if it's garbage in, there's garbage out, number one, right? And also just transparency and change management, as you said before. So, Andy, I'm wondering how you think about this as, a quota-carrying sales guy, and what you've seen, well, in your past anyway, and now a sales leader. How can we best roll out CRMs to the go-to-market org so that they're successful?
Yeah, look, it's a really important question because it's all about time to value. Not all solutions are created equal. And I think sometimes there's this knee-jerk reaction to think that going really fast at all costs is the end goal. But I think that taking some really concerted time to consider some of the things we've mentioned, but some others too, who your audience is, what are your goals? You've always got to keep those up on the shelf right next to you. You can't lose sight of those. And I think trying to work and measure how you're doing against those goals is one of those things that can fly by and go off to the wayside, where you figure, well, let's just keep going. You have to keep checking in. So that means checking in with different user bases. You've got your end customers as your sellers. You've got managers, which do something very different. You have all kinds of supporting cast. You've got account management and client success and all manner of other jobs. You've got operational people, and you've got leadership, and they will all use the app in different ways. So really thinking ahead to what you want to make sure everyone gets as an outcome is not something to treat lightly. The old concept of build it and they will come with CRM never happened. You can set it out there, but people need to know what to expect when they get there. They need to understand what they need to do when they get there and what's expected of them. And then they need to know exactly what to do when they run into a jam or they need some help. So a lot of what I just talked about is a mixture of enablement plus training. Difference being the training is specifically, hey, how do I find how-to steps on how to get this done if I don't remember from my initial rollout, whether it's self-paced e-learning or whether it's a session with a live trainer. And then enablement is that constant communication out to the teams. Be transparent. What's going on? What have you found? Publicize successes. Hey, did you know so-and-so in this particular job role was able to do this and they couldn't do that before? It took them 2/3 longer. So time savings, dollar savings, speed, all of these things are great things to publicize because it makes people want to try the solution. I think oftentimes when people try something, if it's not really smooth the first time, you probably get them to come back once more without any carrot or stick encouragement. Come back another time and it doesn't work, you have a problem on your hands. Getting them to come back that third time gets tougher and tougher. So helping them understand what's in it for them is something that I never really overlook. I always think about it from those different points of view, seller, executive, and everything in between. They have to get something out of it, and it's got to be clear.
Yeah, I think those are great points, Andy. And a CRM should broadly be considered as a tool of productivity, right? And so if you're doing it right, you're going to have productivity, and the individual users should feel that.
Yeah.
Relative to onboarding, I know that the bulk of our customers, or a good share anyway, choose to use our guided onboarding service, and in general achieve, go live in like 1.1 months versus an average for the industry of several months. But it's, as you said, it's not about speed. It's really about quality and getting the data right, and getting the communication and the enablement right.
When you do those things right, you end up getting the speed because you don't have to pause and fix things along the way. You end up going faster in total.
Yeah, that sounds right. So one big piece, kind of transitioning to the second element here for ROI is being able to use the capabilities of the CRM to its fullest. And, if you have a CRM worth its salt, it can do automations, and you can automate a number of different things. And it's I think pretty obvious why automations would create more efficiencies in your organization and thus ROI. Vanessa, I know you have a lot of experience with this, doing this with different types of organizations. And so we talked about what you termed traditional automation. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think traditional automation is using, the point and click approach, being able to build logic with simple tools. And again, many CRMs provide workflow automation, but some of them are easier to use than others. And that's also, an important aspect of buying the system or the platform that you choose. So the people behind the scenes that are going to be building this workflow automation, they need to be able to work it out and build, workflows in future. And so really all we're doing is we're basically saying, these are the steps that a user would traditionally take and where they would click with their mouse and the things they would do. And basically we're getting technology to perform those steps for us. So it could be something as simple as, sending a notification email internally between teams. It could be, creating a new type of record that will then be used downstream in your process. But it really is critical, first of all, that you've got your processes pretty much nailed down before you start automating. Because if your data's still in transit, you maybe haven't, confirmed all of the lists of values or the options that you want in a pick list, and you start building out your workflows, you're going to end up having to do some rework. So I don't necessarily bring in workflow right at the beginning, apart from where those processes are really clearly defined and where we're already, sure about the data. But workflow automation doesn't just, mean using tools to create records or update fields and do those types of things. It could be as simple as having a dashboard that you schedule, or a report that you schedule. So, every Monday I get my exception reports of the opportunities that are missing some data, perhaps. Or maybe I get a warning that we've got, a number of tickets or cases that are about to go over their SLA. So that might be an automated report. So I think sometimes people think, oh, it's automation, I must build a workflow. And so you've always got to come back to that question about, well, why? Why are you trying to automate it? What's the outcome that you're trying to achieve? And then let's look at the options, because, anything that you build needs maintenance. And so you're also looking not only for what will give you a quick result, but also that, what's really maintainable going forward. And sometimes creating some custom code or getting a developer to help you create, a nice formula field might be the thing to do, because that only ever changes, once in a blue moon. But most of the time with things like workflow, it allows you to customize your code on an ongoing basis, but in a very methodical and simple way, for traditional users, business users, like ourselves.
And I'm assuming when you're working with a customer or a client, Vanessa, you might have some of the automations ideated and that you're building at launch, and many more you're sort of training them to build over time, I would assume, because
and it's really Sorry, I was just getting excited because I was just going to say it's really wonderful when you see a user build their own workflow and and create something that they've never done before, and so sometimes I really like to talk through the approach and then have them build it. And again, depending on the tools that you're using, some of them will include commenting and allow you to write comments directly within the workflow. And it's just really great to see people pick up those tools and use them, and then be able to give people feedback on how they might develop them in a slightly different way to be more performant. But yeah, that's kind of really exciting when you see that happen.
Yeah. There actually was a question that just came in for you, Vanessa, and it's what's the outcome you're trying to achieve and what's the maintenance? And I think I don't know if that's related to automations or.
Sorry, I meant, in terms of any solution that you build and anything that you configure has a certain amount of effort, so sometimes the quickest, cheapest way to provide the answer to a question might be to create a list view. That's really quick to do. If I start building a workflow, maybe I'm going to start looking at half an hour's development or an hour's development. And you've got to weigh up, okay, well, what time am I saving? By building it this way, what's the time that I'm saving for users? And also, how often does this happen? So one of the things that you often find early on a project is that people will come up with all of the exceptions that prove the rule, as my French teacher used to say. They'll come up, they'll say, oh, what happens? You've got this process and this is automated, but what happens when this happens? And then often, if you ask, well, how frequently does that happen? And should that happen? And is there another way we could prevent that? You don't want to find yourself building workflows for things that only happen a very limited amount of time. There might be other ways to achieve that. It's about finding the right solution and not using a hammer to crack a nut, as they say.
Yeah, makes good sense. And so, on the sales side, Andy, I know that you experience the benefits of automation all the time as deals are progressing through the funnel. But what else comes to mind for you for automations?
Yeah, we spent so much time putting information into CRM systems. I think there's a lot of, well, what's in it for me? It feels like it's either for, every job level. Sellers feel like it's for their manager. Managers feel like it's for their VP. VPs feel like it's for finance and for the company. And I think that this has been an age-old problem with CRM. And, to get things out of it, automations are one of the first. So people have to do less where the company and the individual start getting more out. I've really been looking a lot more lately too at AI. I think this has really been a big deal because the concept here, on my mobile, I've got 2 or 3 different apps now. It's not just ChatGPT, but also online there's AI and then there's generative AI. And I think both of them have some really interesting promise as a partner along with CRM. So to get your automations to be right, and I'm sure Vanessa would agree with this, you've got to make sure your process is really clear. So before you set your automation up, you've got to know exactly what you're trying to do and when you're trying to get there. When you're setting up AI, it's really the same thing. It's no different than having clarity if you're setting up an office in another location around the world. So we've been looking a lot at this wave of AI, which is not a fad. So generative AI to create content and to generate proposals and to do different things based on your customer information. And then AI in general, a lot of the new applications that are complements to your CRM are really changing the way we're starting to interact with this CRM system in sales organizations, client success organizations, and marketing organizations, where it looks at your data, it looks at your activities, integrating with other things, be it emails or your calendar, to make suggestions. It will start to see patterns that maybe as a human you're not going to see, and it serves up. You should speak to so-and-so. So-and-so's pipeline, Mr. Manager, seems to be low. Make sure to speak to them by this week to improve it. Otherwise, your odds of making the quarter go down. These suggestions are much more at your fingertips, and it's really changing the way that we're able to not just interact with CRM, but it's giving us something back finally. Just like workflows and automations do, it simplifies. This gives us real suggestions, but it's based on your business, which is really nice. It's not general suggestions. They're things that you can take action on.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of promise for AI and CRM, no question, and excited to see how it emerges over time. So I think, one of the things you mentioned there is just getting more out of your CRM. And one way to do that is it helps you go faster. And kind of what I've learned, I think there's more research that has recently come out, one from the author Jay Baer, and he has a book called The Time to Win. If you're interested, it's funny. It's like a $10 book, and it's literally like that big. But you can learn a ton from this book in a little bit of the time. But one of the things that he uncovered in his research is that customers would pay up to 50% more if they never had to wait. And 53% report spending more for the fastest brand. Just the first to the deal, the first maybe to the demo request when it came into your organization, or the first to the lead. I mean, it's kind of tantamount if you think about it. If you've been to Disney, you'll pay more to get the fast pass to go right to the front of the line. And I think customer behavior is just like that in B2C and B2B also. And so what can your CRM do to help you go faster? And one thing I think it can do is, for example, use lead assignment rules that move from maybe a form and immediately assign it, to a round robin or directly to a person or onto their calendar to optimize their ability to respond. Drift, we're actually a customer of Drift for chat on our website. And they have research that only 7% of companies respond in the first 5 minutes, and 55% took over 5 days to respond to demo requests. And so clearly a lot of organizations are failing here. And, Vanessa, what would you say you have to put in place with the CRM to help organizations go faster?
Yeah, I think, to your point, there's a huge amount of business that's lost by people not responding promptly. So the first thing is, your auto response as soon as somebody fills in a form on your website. But actually, nowadays, there's a lot to suggest that people actually do want, to talk to chatbots. They do want to get answers immediately. I mean, recently I put a query into support, and I was amazed at the response I got back because it was perfect and solved my problem immediately, and I didn't need to speak to anybody. And that was really surprising for me, because I've been probably a bit of a late comer to the whole AI side of things. But I think I read a statistic years ago that said something like you were 7 times more likely to win business by being the first business to respond to your customer. So when your customer's on your website and they fill in that form or they ask for a demo, they're in buying mode. You're not going to go into a shop and ignore the person, that's in the fitting room, ready to buy something. But it's just frightening how much we do that in business. And I think also making people really clear about how quickly you'll respond and just keeping to your promise. If you are a small business, you're not going to have the same kind of capacity as a larger business might. But actually, it's usually the larger organizations where you get lost in the loop. You aren't assigned to the right person, or you think you're getting a demo, but you're actually getting a pre-qualification call before a demo, which I find incredibly frustrating when I'm looking for software for my clients. And also, I think you need to be a bit careful about your assignment rules. So I think, again, people do have certainly location, that's obviously very important to make sure that you're reaching out to people in the right time zone. But sometimes, we have to answer these questions about how big our organization is, and those sorts of scoring or qualification rules may actually exclude somebody that's making a buying decision on behalf of somebody else. So obviously that's key, you know, when you're talking about you know, software, but also like big ticket items. You know, maybe somebody's an agent for somebody that wants to buy something, but they might get excluded because, you know, the stats on their organization, you know, don't match the high value ones that organization is trying to attract. So I think certainly have it being really clear about how you're going to route those calls. And if you can't, you know, take a call or have a meeting immediately, you know, again, providing people with the right kinds of things whilst they're waiting. So lots of people are doing that these days. You know, you get an email with links to resources or videos, but the chances are the moment that somebody fills in that form, they've already watched all the videos they want to watch. You know, they really do want to speak to somebody, and it is important right now. So just doing everything you can to make sure that you can speak to a person if that's what the customer would like, and not trying to, you know, make everything too technology focused, because it just feels very, very impersonal, and everyone, you know, wants to speak to a real human at some point, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if you can put the yourself in the shoes of the prospect or your customers when they're doing the outreach, like you said, they're probably at the point where they feel like they are in the virtual waiting room, ready to go, and they're maybe their wallet's out even, but definitely they're interested in talking to somebody, and you know, you can use the technology to help you out there. I mean, Andy, anything you want to add for what you've seen work best for optimizing lead assignment for speed and just quality too?
Yeah, I mean, look, if anybody finds a way to add more time without making us busier, please look me up on LinkedIn and give me a call. I have a business partnership idea for you. I would say that it's building on what Vanessa just said. Time is the big limiter for all of us. So whether inside of your business, whether you're a few people or whether you're a bigger organization, the time is really precious throughout the day. So I'm always looking for ways to add efficiency, meaning I want to get something done in less time, but get to the same exact outcome without having to spend a lot more energy. And I think that we spend a lot of time looking for information, searching for it. It's in different locations. It's in different formats. It's in a format that I'm not familiar with. I have to take time. So factoring all of that in, as leads come in, you want it to be very predictable. You want it to be measurable. I also want to make things very transparent and visible so that people are able to see how many they're getting, where they're going, what the trend is like, so that they're able to take action. I love this app. I'm getting happy faces everywhere at the bottom. The bottom line there is the same thing it's always been. Make it easier for people to do what you need them to do, what you're asking of them. Set the expectation up front, make it easier for them, measure it, and off you go. And it sounds very simple because it really is. These are really important basics. And again, it's no different than somebody that's got, you know, one partner with two people in a small company or a great big organization. You've got to find ways to make it easier for people to do what you're asking them to do, and getting the leads to the right person to eliminate any disruption. Speed to lead is key. Lead goes to the wrong person, they've got to send it to somebody else, or sorry, that's not mine. And then no one follows up. You're not getting that business. So at all costs, get it routed the right way, do it efficiently, and make it easier for people to take the action.
Great tips there. And so we've learned that integration is critical for CRM systems, especially a typical organization right now is leveraging 10, 20, 30, 50 or more pieces of software. Sometimes even, you know, the go-to-market team has more than that. And if you think about a sales rep, right, you know, asking them what they work in most, and they're likely going to talk about email. I looked at some stats, and it looks like the average sales rep spends about 21% of their day just writing emails, and they send on average about 36 emails a day, and they spend tons more time, certainly in the CRM, reacting to emails and things like that. So, you know, a lot of CRMs, ours included, does integrate with Gmail, with Outlook, helping you, you know, basically use that as your dashboard for interacting. You know, how do you think about this? Is this a common request that you get, Vanessa, when you're installing a CRM, and what are some of the more common things that you're integrating with?
Yeah, I mean, as much as people would say, oh, you know, the CRM has to be the source of truth, that's true to a certain degree, but email does email really well. So, you know, I don't think we're ever going to get anybody away from inbox, you know, from their inbox, whether that's Gmail or Outlook. And I don't think there's a need to. I think what's critical is that we have the ability to log and track those emails and take what, you know, the top 20 or 30% of communications that we do want to store and we should have a history of, and have those within our CRM. So one of the first things that I do is you know, help companies implement that little integration, you know, for any CRM, and obviously Insightly's got, you know, a neat one as well, because that's really your stepping stone into the CRM. But what I do like to explain is that, you know, your inbox is everybody else's demands on you and your time. Whereas when you're in your CRM, you are focused, you know, completely on your contacts, on your companies, on your priorities. And, you know, and the other day I was looking for an email in Outlook, and I knew I'd sent something and I couldn't find it. And I thought, why am I looking in Outlook? I'm going to go straight into my CRM, look at the contact and company record, and I know that I'll see it there, you know, because we've got so much stuff going on in our inboxes. So I think that actually using those kinds of integrations is a great way for helping people see, well, actually, you know, if we do bring this activity into the CRM, look at all the reports that we can then, you know, get from that, and how using the tools in the CRM, you know, whether we're automating, whether we're using email templates, whether we're using, you know, emails where we've got a sequence of emails going out from a salesperson. Let's see the outcome and analyze what's, you know, the benefit is from that activity. But whether that's, you know, generated directly in your CRM or in the inbox, it's more about the reporting and the insights that we can derive from that kind of metadata or data. So I definitely wouldn't say it's not a good thing to do that. It's like one of the first things that I want to do, and it's really frustrating when you can't do it because of security reasons or whatever. And then simple things like using SSO, single sign-on, if you're in a larger organization, just making it easy to get into the CRM. And then I think at the beginning of an implementation, you know, it is an opportunity to say, okay, well, we know that everybody uses their own emails, you know, they use their own templates and they copy and paste, and, you know, there are standard things that we do all the time. But any new CRM or any upgrade in a CRM also gives you an opportunity to revisit those common tasks that you perform and give people some best practice. So again, that's about the value that we talked about earlier, you know, giving them the 5 best email templates that we use, and sharing the knowledge that you've already got amongst your team. I think that really helps with adoption.
Yeah, I agree, Vanessa. And if you think about it, time is truly money for most organizations, you know, and it maybe if it's even heightened more for the sales team, right? And so if the email inbox is sort of where they spend a lot of their day, how can you, you know, integrate your CRM such that they can easily create a contact right from the email system into the CRM without having to have both windows open all the time? Yeah. So Andy, I know that you have some opinions on this. So what are your thoughts about sales rep time and productivity?
Yeah, you know, before I mentioned the whole build it and they will come thing never really works. Instead, go to them. So if people are already in email, put your content and feed your sales intelligence apps and whatnot in a way that you're already feeding it into CRM. They're already there. You can do a lot of the interaction with your email right from the CRM or from the CRM, rather from the email that will feed the CRM. So either direction is really good without having to go to another app or another destination or another portal location or whatever the case may be. Having sales intelligence apps out there now, especially conversational intelligence, the likes of Gong or what was Chorus that's now part of ZoomInfo, as they're interacting with your emails and your phone calls, the intelligence that gathers out of your email and then feeds it back to you, you don't have to ask anyone to go anywhere different to do that. So I don't view this as saving time. It's the opposite. It's time you have to spend, but you don't want to lose time instead. So it's really about coming to your teams and allowing them to stay where they are and what they're used to so they can get work done without having them to disrupt their day and go to another location. So there's really a lot of investment that can take place up front, but it's not a lot of lifting. So you get a lot of value out of some of these sales intelligence apps, conversational intelligence in the email, in the CRM. They're there anyway. Come to them.
Yeah, I think it's a great theme, not necessarily saving time, but ensuring that you're not spending more time. Because I think as a leader, even like when I think about our go-to-market motion, it's easy to say we want one more bell and whistle, but you have to think about the downstream impact of that to the team. So I want to pick up on this concept of relationship linking, and that's another thing that can help make you more productive as an organization. So, for a lot of businesses, especially mid-size, even larger businesses, to know how people are connected inside of the CRM, maybe they're related to deals as influencers or other relationships, just truly makes your CRM more valuable and also kind of more plug and play, so to speak, for the AEs, making them more productive. Do you have other examples of that come up in the work that you do, Vanessa?
Yeah, so I think I sort of went ahead a moment with the Org Chart Plus and the Org Chart Hub that I mentioned in the help, because I think there's two things. There's certainly being able to define a relationship within the CRM is hugely important. So for some organizations, if they've got broker relationships that they're trying to reflect, they might have a buyer and a seller, or a buyer and multiple sellers that they need to associate with an opportunity or a deal. So just in terms of somebody's processes, there could be multiple parties involved. Also, if you are working in an organization where you maybe have a channel or a partner model, you might need to reflect who your partners are working with you, or your referrers, or your introducers. So there's a lot of relationships that are standard things every day that we need to be able to define clearly. And so certainly your CRMs that allow you to define those relationships, label them and categorize them and show how people are, reflected on the opportunity clearly. To your point, who's the decision maker, who's the buyer, and am I speaking to enough people within one organization is critical. And then if you want to visualize that kind of information or present it in a visual way, there are some really nice apps that are populated from the data in your CRM. And one that I was looking at, and literally just this week because of the AI thing, so the Org Chart Hub one has heat maps, so it also shows you, once it's populated the chart from your contact data, it can either do that automatically using AI, or you can do it manually yourself, but then it shows you with a heat map where are your strongest relationships, or how frequently you're communicating with people. So I think when you start showing sales teams and managers that kind of visual information that is effectively populated by the contact data that you've already got, that's when you then start seeing people get excited about CRM in the same way that we do.
That's super interesting. And when you think about it, in the CRM, things exist maybe in multiple states, in leads and opportunities, prospects, contacts, orgs, things like that. And especially in a B2B sense, you're now org selling more than individual selling. And so the CRM has to enable that.
Well, it's interesting that I've certainly seen a trend over the last couple of years that there are more people involved later in the buying process. So, you've got those people that are doing the selection and the validation at the beginning of the sale. But it's you often find random people popping up, later on in the process as you're getting closer to making a real decision. And so again, some of these tools will actually identify and say, well, you've got to proposal stage, but actually it doesn't look like you've got enough contacts in your database, or you're not speaking to enough people with the right kind of role based on what we already know about your usual win rate, or the usual number of people that you're speaking to at this point. So yeah, there's some really interesting tools that will work alongside your CRM to highlight that kind of information as well.
Good stuff. Well, I want to make sure that we get to one of the most important features of a CRM, which is reports and dashboards. And when I think about how I'm engaging as the CMO with our CRM, it's often in this way, right? I'm getting data out of the CRM. I'm looking for trends. I'm looking for revenue by channel, by stage, by segment, things like that as a marketing leader. Mm-hmm. And so if you don't take the time to set up your reports, automate your reports, build your dashboards, you're not going to get full ROI out of your system. Mm-hmm. What else comes to mind? What are some of the more important charts, Andy, that you use in your CRM?
I mean, this is where it really brings it all together.
Yeah.
This last segment that we just talked about, relationships, I had to just kind of sit here and not get too excited because the relationships are so key. But bringing those connections together, it's all through these visualizations. So reports and dashboards. It's not just building a report that you ask someone to put together and you go look at it once in a while. It's the so what. It's I've got a question. I need to get an answer so I can go do something. So it depends on the team, of course. So whether you're in a product team, you're in a sales team, you're in marketing or client success, there's obviously so many different cuts. But for us to track our business, we start early where we look at lead volume and trends by location and also by source. So we want to see are leads coming from events in marketing? Are they coming from emails? Are they coming from social? And secondarily, we want to look at, so for example, in the organization I'm in today, we're getting to the mid-sized level. We're just starting to get channel partners. We want to know the business they're bringing to us, again, via relationships. Our board often is the source for many. We want to look at those relationships as well. So tracking the lead sources. And of course, if sales is drumming up their own pipeline, which we're about 50%, quite high in terms of lead gen for a sales organization. So pipeline and lead by source, really critical. Where is it coming from? Conversion rates. So of those leads, how many are getting into the sales pipeline then? And then how is it going? What stage they're in, so how advanced and how long you've been working with them. Who's involved in the sales cycle? We just talked about the relationships. I don't mean to bring the AI piece in again. I make it sound like I'm using AI for lots of things. We're just starting to look. But I saw an app very literally yesterday that would say, hey, you haven't spoken to Mary Smith yet at this company. Mary Smith is involved in 85% of deal signatures. You need to speak to Mary Smith. It was fascinating. So the concept of bringing it together, sales stage reporting, how long deals are in certain stages, setting those up, setting up workflows to give you alerts if something has been there too long is a great report or a dashboard to be able to manage your business so things aren't sitting idle. You're keeping them moving and the activities are taking place. And then, of course, things like making your business more predictable. So you need forecast reporting. You need projections. You also need to see customer status. So not just what's booked and what's in the forecast and what you're looking at for that particular quarter, but what's happening next quarter, next month. How are you doing toward those targets? So making this very visual allows you to take those questions of, hey, how are we doing this month? Whether you've got investors, a board, you're a private company, or you're a public company, being able to get faster answers happen because these reports and dashboards summarize all of that data, often from, they could be even different sources. If it's not all in your CRM, you could have most in your CRM, but bring in from another source. And these dashboards bring it together in one place, whether you're using quote business intelligence tools or whether you're using what's baked into your CRM system, or even if it's a Google Sheets or an Excel file. These can give you the ability to answer those questions faster with less work so that you can keep the business moving. To me, it's a must. You can't have CRM and just use list views. You have to get these summarized views with these reports and dashboards to really get value out of it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And in my experience, nothing will make your CEO happier than when you send him the link and he gets up to the minute executive visibility on everything that's happening inside the business. I think that is something that will, saves a lot of time for everybody downstream because they're not having to prepare a manual spreadsheet, right? And so makes the business run better because the knowledge is better and the outcomes are better. What are some of the top dashboards you build, Vanessa, for people?
Yeah, a lot of it's definitely around pipeline and how the number and volume of opportunities at one point. So it's certainly a lot around the sales side of things. But I try, for every business, I try to look at what are the reports and dashboards that we need to help us manage what we've got now. So your operational workspace or your operational dashboards. And then I think there are dashboards that allow you to look back and allow you to look forward. So if we're looking back, we're looking at past trends and what insights we can derive from those. So that may be looking at, the number of tickets that we handled last month or the number of opportunities that we closed last month. And then, what we need to do to improve those numbers going forward. And then you've got, reports or dashboards that will tell you future things. So, this is back to that exception reporting. We want alerts around the fact that we haven't got enough leads in the pot or we haven't got enough business in our pipeline. So for every business, it's, obviously everybody's trying to sell something, or maybe, even in non-profits, you're looking to win funding. So you've got something that's measurable and that you've got a direct number, but it's then trying to work out all of the activities that have an impact on that number. And generally there are only 2 or 3 levers that you might need to pull, but it's finding out which lever you can pull first that's going to have the biggest impact or increase on your revenue. But then also looking at customer service. I think, we do focus a lot on sales and marketing, but also if you're running projects in Insightly, or you're using tickets or cases to help you with customer service, that's really going to have a huge impact on your customers and their customer experience. So looking at the timings for those as well. So yeah, a lot of the dashboards I'm building are, I like to kind of call them workspaces, because a lot of the time it's that workspace of information that's helping them then plan their day. But obviously, with the sales side of things, as Andrew mentioned, that's looking also to the future, and the pipeline that we're working on, this week is what's driving our business for next year or the year after. It's not what I'm doing this week that's going to have an impact on how the year goes.
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks, Vanessa. And I know that we probably have to get to the last point that we have for today because we're getting near the top of the hour, but we've talked a lot about sales. I also want to talk about marketing. And, Insightly thinks of ourselves as an all-in-one CRM. So we also have marketing automation and service in the same platform that allows you to leverage that single source of data, also the single view of the customer. And we did some interesting research last year with Ascend 2. And this was about sales and marketing alignment, which is something that your CRM can do. And 36% of companies with aligned technology on their GTM, their go-to-market teams, showed a significant increase in revenue compared to just 14% of those with less alignment. And so we're excited about that data because it shows the benefit of aligning marketing and sales. And I'm curious, in practice, how you see that with the organizations that you're working with, Andy and Vanessa, the ability to integrate in your marketing automation and take action from your CRM and connect it to marketing. I think it just makes, from where I sit, given that we run our whole company on our own technology, it gives us that continuous view of the customer journey, and that has a lot of benefits.
Look, this is one of the things I think about first when I get up every day is staying aligned between the marketing organization, the sales organization, the customer success organization overall. I don't like the concept of handoffs. I like it to just be a smooth flow all the way through the cycle. So the more I can help stay aligned in the systems, whether they're different systems or the same system, the net result for the user base and the business should be similar. I don't want there to be specific big events that have to happen that have points of failure. Instead, I like these to be just like, these are normal handshakes that happen. So the alignment, I mentioned earlier when we were talking about dashboards a few moments ago, this concept of coming from lead to pipeline. So as you progress through, funnel or stages or whatever setup you happen to have, I want to be able to track that. And I want to be able to see across all of it without any delays, without any slowdowns. Again, we keep getting back to time. We keep getting back to another common theme, which is, first in. Sometimes the client's wallet is open. If you miss that opportunity, we can control this. So I love when the system and your automation and your process around it is as seamless as possible, so that you're able to capitalize on all of that. Otherwise, it just slows things down, and you could have some missed opportunities. So it's just more awareness from sales to understand where marketing is spending their time and their budget. Maybe there are events, maybe there are specific online campaigns, you name it. And then vice versa for marketing to understand, okay, well, what happened as a result? Did sellers take action? How did the sales teams do as a result of the investments that we made? So making that crystal clear is nothing but upside. I feel like it's something critical for our business, and I felt that way for quite a while at a bunch of different companies.
It's so true. Well, I know that we're almost at the top of the hour. Any final thoughts, Vanessa, that you would add to this?
Yeah, I think on the marketing side, I think, often, again, there's that, those silos, aren't there, of, the sales team does this, the marketing team does that. And I think now with CRM, where that data, is shared fully from marketing, between marketing and sales, it just allows people to see what the other side of the equation is doing, and actually, the fact that you are getting better qualified leads, that those prospects that attended your last webinar are more likely to convert, or the outreach that we've been doing using a telemarketing team is having a great impact on the quality of meetings that we're getting. So yeah, there's lots of things you can use, scoring, to help you see that the quality of leads that's coming across the fence is better. But also I just think in terms of learning and, again, adoption, back in the day when there were lots of disparate systems, you'd have one person that knew the marketing system and one person knew the sales system, and neither of the people knew the grey bit in the middle, and that was always a bit of a challenge. So I think just being able to train people more easily because they are using the same platform is going to make the learning easier, and obviously then you can experiment and optimize accordingly.
Well, we're in a new day, and the CRM can serve as that connective tissue. Vanessa, Andy, thank you so much today. And thanks to everybody who joined us today for this webinar. I really appreciate your time.
And the cat is here, but she's just on the floor. So I was waiting for her to jump up.
The cat.
Cat knew when to arrive. It's top of the hour. All right. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Have a good evening.